All right, you guys, welcome back to TalkIFY. This is episode 2. For this episode, we actually are going to talk about the challenges that a BDR and an SDR face right now during this whole COVID situation. Myself, I'm actually in business development. So today, for a special host, we're actually going to bring on Emily, who is the producer of the show, to actually host the show so I can be a part of the discussion. So, Emily, go ahead and actually take it away. This is your show today.
Got it. Awesome. Well, great to be here. So, hey guys, I'm Emily. I am in business development as well. And typically I'm the producer in Erica's ear, but today I'm going to be asking some questions so that Erica really has the opportunity to share her insights as well. So first thing, I would love if everybody could go around and kind of just say their name and position so we know who we're speaking to. Alberto, if you want to start us off.
Yeah, absolutely. First thing I'll say, it's really good to be here. Good to be here with everybody. So again, my name is Alberto Escalante. I'm an enterprise business development representative.
Oh, I guess I'll go to me. Hello, viewers and everyone here. My name is Keiko. I am a senior sales development representative.
Awesome. Well, thanks to everybody for going around and just saying a little bit about yourself. So a little bit of background on this episode. So I think as we all know, like a lot of SDRs and BDRs and people in sales in general right now are really going through a lot of challenges due to the changes from COVID-19. And traditionally it's not a work from home job. Traditionally it's been, you have your colleagues with you can bounce ideas off of them, celebrate wins, really turn to the next person and talk about frustrations. And as that's shifted, it's really shifted the dynamic and in many ways, the way that we do our job. So my first question is for you, Kyoko. So my understanding is that in what you do, you typically target retail. So this is an industry that has been hit especially hard right now. So what are some of the challenges that you are facing as you navigate working remotely with these changes right now?
Goodness, there are so many. Like you said, a lot of our clients are retail focused. So it's been a slow transition. So we have to keep in mind that they are trying to figure out what their next move is. And thankfully, we have a retail product as well as an e-commerce online product. So we're able to kind of bounce that off of one another. For those that focus mainly on retail, we are trying to push them and say, hey, look, this is what's happening right now. Obviously, there's not much that we can do about it. Have you thought about focusing on e-commerce for the time being until things go back a little bit to normal? Because even once we're off of shelter in place, things are not going to go back to normal. So retail is going to continue to take a hard hit. So we're just being more strategic and kind of trying to refocus and replan and then help the retail companies that we can while they do the same.
Awesome. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, definitely. I'm sure it takes, a lot more kind of time and effort for that strategy. You have to shift what you were doing, which, adds a little bit more thought, which can be a challenge in a job that already requires quite a bit of thought and planning. So to move on to Alberto and Erica, I would love to hear if you could build off of what Kyoko said. What are some of the challenges that you guys are facing as you are dealing with the industries that you typically chase?
Well, for me, I think mainly it's probably the same for most. The challenges that we normally face are certain objections, and the most common objection is, not right now. There's no funding, and usually those are almost kind of an excuse, and we still kind of head on and go after these companies. But now we actually have to be like, they legitimately might not be able to do this. There's no funding and it's not the right time. So I feel like that was probably one of the biggest challenges, is realizing these objections that we're used to handling are real actual objections, and now we have to figure out a way around it.
I think that makes a lot of sense. What about you, Alberto? What about you?
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a really interesting time. I think, what's kind of stayed the same, I think, just even being an enterprise business development rep, some of the challenges is how do you get people's attention? That's kind of a constant one. I happen to work a territory where there is a lot of the retail there's oil and gas. And so you have all these other compacted challenges where there's a lot of moving parts already. Some people have been furloughed, and yet the job still remains of how do we identify these people? How do we actually get them engaged? So that's a really interesting challenge. So I think one of the ways that I've actually began to navigate that is a couple of different ways, actually. So there's still a compelling reason that we're reaching out to solve their problems. It still has to be about them ultimately. How we actually begin to deliver and convey that message is going to look a little bit different. So Again, one thing I would say is that some industries aren't going to be higher priorities than others. So oil and gas isn't going to be one because there's just so much uncertainty. So another challenge to add on top of that is, everyone's sort of in survival mode. So they're less likely to want to latch onto anything else or even take sort of what we would consider a sales call, even though a business development rep isn't really in charge of selling a product, but really more so on mind share. So there's got to be a little bit more of a compelling reason now than ever before to solve a lot of these uncertain challenges. So I think it requires a lot more deeper diving and, targeting personas that we wouldn't ordinarily target. So I think there's a much more wide approach because a lot of different people and personas in organizations care about revenue. And that's a lot of like what we speak to.
Yeah, piggybacking off of what Alberto was talking about, like in order to work around those challenges that we're facing, I think that it's where your personal skills, your own personal strengths actually come into play at this point. Like you need to figure out in your own special way, like what you're capable of doing with this job and utilizing what you've learned and how long you've been in this position and thinking mainly outside the box, doing things completely different than you would normally do to be able to make sure that you're still pulling off your metrics. The more you can think outside the box, the more you can figure out a creative way to get in, to book a meeting. That's going to be what you leverage, I think, at this point to just work around any challenges that we're facing.
Definitely have to get scrappier now than before. Like, not that we weren't before, but scrappy, Erica, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I mean, even then we're at home, and it's just hard. We got to pick up our own energy. I don't have Erica's energy to feed off of. Like it's not something that's there. So it makes it that much harder. But I think it also offers another level of respect for what we do.
Yeah.
People are realizing even within our own companies, it's hard being on the front lines. It's hard being a BDR. It's hard being an SDR because we are the front lines. We are the first contact. So we have to figure out a way to continue to motivate ourselves. And like Erica said, get creative.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. And I think that's something we're all kind of experiencing. And to kind of, again, build off of that question. So based on what you guys have experienced and how you have been leveraging your skills, what advice would you give to other SDRs or BDRs who are trying to understand, how do I navigate doing my job well while also working from home and dealing with, all the changes that go along with that?
Yeah, I'm happy to dive in here. I think there's a couple of ways to look at it. I think, again, no one's ever been in a situation like this before. This really has disrupted everything. As it was said in the beginning, this job was never intended to be a work from home one. So that has inbuilt challenges in it. You don't have this sense of community. In some ways, you're sort of like siloed. So it really means you have to kick up a lot of things. So I guess one thing that I would say that's really big, it's really easy to have, in some ways, work consume all areas of your life. So don't let that consume your entire life. Have structure, have plans, dress as if you're going to work. Have a structure for your life. So, because this is a huge disruption. So as much normalcy as you can, high levels of engagement with your team. You need community in that. You need ideas. We don't have that. So we have to fight for it even harder than we've ever had before. I think we're more reliant on people than ever before. So leverage definitely your managers. And actually what's really interesting too is that LinkedIn has had this huge flurry of activity. So there's tons of thought leaders and people who are willing to share information, different organizations. So the information's out there and people are more willing to connect than ever before. So now is a great time, I think, to foster and nurture new relationships as well. So that way it's like it's not just your company. There's other people that are in that boat too. But, so I think one thing is don't lose sight of the structure. Don't lose sight of the target. Get creative. If you hit walls, that's normal. That's part of what learning and growing is. You're going to hit walls, but the goal is ultimately to, get faster at getting creative and being more efficient at it. That's just the way that you learn. So, but ultimately you need to have your people to springboard off of to keep you going ultimately.
Right. And I completely 100% agree with Alberto. I think, to be honest, one of the first things you need to do is be kind to yourself, have patience with yourself. Like, this is completely not normal, and utilize more than ever your team at this point. Like, you need to stay with them. You need to talk to them all the time, keep in touch, use each other's stories. What are they hearing? What are they going through? What are their objections? How did they book that meeting? What did they say? I mean, down to the T, the little bit that you can have, utilize all that, work together, utilize your tech stack, whatever your company is offering you, use all those tools you probably never used before, use those, collaborate with your marketing team, tell them, you know, what's happening. You're like Keiko said, the front lines, like you're seeing everything, you're hearing everything. Your marketing team's there is to help you with that, to give you the collateral, the content that you're looking for to help you get past the situation. So the more people you stick around and talk with and communicate with, is the better the opportunity is going to go with you.
I agree completely. You touched on, in essence, just taking this time to educate ourselves further. You know, perfect your craft, use those tools that you haven't used since your first day on the job. So this is a time to definitely utilize those. And I like what you said in the beginning, Erica, you have to be patient with yourselves. Like, this is new and this is tough. And yes, I fully believe in a structure. And I believe, you know, at 9 o'clock, if I was in the office typically at 9 to 4:30, 4:45, 5, if my boss was watching, then it's business as normal. But if you need to take a break, if you need to step away, if you need to go for a walk with your dog, take that walk. And I think it's important that we realize that we have to protect our mental peace while we're isolated. Because if we wake up and we just get up, roll out of bed and come into a dark office, it's not going to help anything. Our energy is going to be low and we're probably going to get depressed, and then who can work while depressed? So yeah, all of that.
100%.
True.
Pretty true. Yeah, mental health is the best thing we can have right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's always a priority. And I think it's just become even more clear in this situation that, like, we have to take care of ourselves. And that's not only when we can do our best work, but also when we can bring the most to the people around us. And I know for me, my team Slack channel has helped to keep me sane and keep me going during my day. So that's definitely been kind of a crucial piece of the puzzle. So kind of another question I would love to move on to. So on LinkedIn, as we've discussed, there's been a lot of activity lately, and it's really opened up more discussions. So one thing that has been discussed in quite a bit of depth is the question of, should we be selling right now, or should we be holding off and just providing resources and help? So I would love to kind of get everyone's perspective on what is your take on selling versus not selling. And let's start off with Erica's thoughts.
That question's actually, you know what? My thought on that question is, if you're a BDR and you're an SDR, like, this is where you should pay attention. This is where you should listen. If you know your product, you know what you're selling. So if you know your product is not useful in this time, it's not something that is going to be wanted and bought, then I think that that's when you need to be nurturing those accounts and those prospects. And you need to be having the most personalized conversations with each one of those people, because at the end of the day, when they are ready to buy your product and the time comes and they can purchase your product and use it, you want to make sure they're running back to you and they remember you to go back to be the number one person. So that's when you want, like, just stop what you're doing. Don't be a robot right now and just keep blasting or do whatever you're doing. Like, give real thoughts about what you're really doing, what you're really selling, and should you be selling. If your platform isn't working right now and it's not one of the number one platforms needed in a time like this, nurture, nurture, nurture. Like, you want to make sure you're personalized and ready to go for when they are ready to buy. But if your platform or your tool or whatever you're selling is something that you use right now, then I think that's when you need to realize, like Alberto said a little bit earlier, when you're going after an industry, is it an industry that's going to need your tool right now? Make sure it's an industry that's actually going to need your tool. You need to make sure that if it is an industry that's using your tool, who in that company, that what department is really going to use that tool right now? So that way you can narrow your actual, like, prospecting down to the person that's actually going to need it and really give you the chance to explain why, instead of just trying to go like we normally do and dig out who. Like, you want to make sure if you're going to actually say what you're going to say and you have that moment, you have that 1 second to get it out, like, which we never do, it needs to be the right person, and it's going to be to someone who's going to actually be able to make the change and bring it on. So do your homework about company, positions, titles, industries, and sell, but make sure also when you're selling, it's personalized, because you are going through something. Like, we need to stop and remember we're going through something. This is something that, like, we're all going through. If you're a normal BDR and or an SDR and you're going after someone and they tell you no and they hang up on you, they could just be having a bad day and we can, or something didn't go right. But right now, we actually have no idea what someone's going through on the other side of the phone or an email at all. Like, this has brought so much suffering to a lot of people that we actually have no way of being able to. So you need to be superhuman. And if you're gonna be personalized, don't be like a fake personalized, like be real and be like, I know what you're going through. I know what's the situation. I want to help you, explain why you want to help them, and make it so they know that like, hey, I'm not just another person trying to come at you because I have this product that I can sell to you right now. And at the same time, like if you're going to do some sort of prospecting, make it light. Don't make it salesy. Make it super light, like fun. Like right now, when I go after anybody I go after, it's fun. It's laughing. They're responding with like, thanks for the email. It's a joke, you know, like not the COVID is a joke, but like I know I don't want to go after you, but I have to, and you know, so I'm gonna make this light. I'm gonna tell a joke. Let's laugh, and then like let's get down to business afterwards. You know, like let's open the door first. Let's pretend we're, you know, let's make sure we're okay first before we actually do some sort of business or exchange. Like that's my opinion. So sell when you need to sell and your product is worth selling, and then nurture if your product isn't, and make sure that they're ready to buy and they remember you for when it's time to buy.
I think one thing we have to remember just with selling in general, the goal is to problem solve. So if you have a product or a tool in which can solve a business or a company's issues right now, then you should be reaching out to that company. And I think the root of that entire discussion of sell or not sell is really how we sell. Should we be aggressive like phone Nazis right now, or should we, you know, like Erica said, keep it light? I'm still reaching out to as many people as I was before, actually maybe even a little bit more, just in light of the situation. There are more people that may be better prospects than they previously were. But the first thing that I mentioned is, you know, how are you? Are you okay? How have you been affected? You know, in light of this, we're seeing this. I've got this company that had this issue. Let me see if I can help you in the same regard. So I think as long as we remember that we're trying to problem solve, not just selling to people, then it's going to be a lot easier to kind of tackle.
Right. That's kind of how I've been going at it too, with this whole prospecting differently. It's like, first, let me help you. What do you need? Do you want to just talk to a random stranger? I'm here for you. That's literally in my emails is like, if you just forget all this, if you just want to talk as a stranger, like that's fine. I'm here for you too. Let's do that.
That's you.
And yeah, that's like, and that's how I've been going at it, is because like there's no other way. Like that's just me in general too. The person that I am, my personality. I'm like, oh, I don't really want to like hurt your feelings, so I'm just gonna do what I would do to myself. Like I just want to talk. Like, you know.
Yeah, you know, I think it's a really interesting time because there are so many moving parts. You know, I'm definitely in agreement that, you know, this really needs to be more of a what is the compelling reason? What is it that's moving this conversation forward? What is the problem that we're trying to solve? Because the thing is that, again, I go back to, this is really, really new for a lot of people. So in a lot of ways, what that means is this is exposing a lot of gaps. So there's tons of business problems. Now, the challenge is like, how do we surface them? You know, how do we get creative in terms of thinking of like, how we're going to do that? I mean, because part of what makes it challenging is that even the leaders sometimes don't have a line of sight of what that needs to look like. So, so that means that we need to have a different approach. And in some ways, depending on who we go after, there is a lot more information available than ever before about those organizations. So, I think in a lot of ways it presents an opportunity, kind of like what Erica was saying, is that to be to be a partner in this as well, not just kind of pushing a product. I think, you know, pushing a product doesn't really make a whole lot of sense if you're not solving anything for it. If it just becomes that becomes really strange, I think. Not the most pleasant conversations at all, but again, we've never seen anything like this before. But again, there's tons of problems. If people are in survival mode, they're trying to stop the bleeding. Where are you trying to, you know, plug your holes in your boat from, you know, it leaking? You know, that's what we have to sort of uncover. That's what makes it challenging. Yeah. And one thing I will say too, is just that, you know, cause especially in the industry that I'm, well, not industry, but in the sort of the segment and personas that we go after, there are people that have been affected, by it as well. So it becomes a very different conversation. You know, I had a conversation with somebody that was like, hey, you know, I don't even know if I'll have a job in 6 months. You know, which was really difficult. So that at that point, it didn't even become a conversation about product. It really just became about them, you know? So I think, you know, especially in this work, it's like we, now more than ever, we don't want to lose, we want to have a line of sight on just that these are people. And I think also at the same time, it's like, you know, again, I come back to, it's like there are actual business problems. And the problem, and I think the thing is, to the conversation, I always hold true to this. The conversation should never be about the product. It should always be about the business and what we're trying to solve for. You take product off of it, then you have a completely different conversation altogether.
I think that's the huge difference between sellers, is when you know that, exactly what Alberto said, when you know the difference between those two. Like, you're not selling that, you're trying to solve. And that's great advice right there.
All right. Well, I think everybody had some really interesting insights, and it's interesting how everybody, you know, is taking it from their perspective. So depending on what you're selling, how you're selling, you know, what you've been taught, what you're learning, what you're looking for right now, it's going to be a little bit different for everybody, but definitely something to think about, and something we can all perhaps give a little more thought to than we did before. So for our final question today, I would love to ask all of you, you know, as an SDR or BDR who works really long hours and in many ways structures your own schedule throughout the day, how do you signify the end of the workday for yourself and kind of turn off the world?
Oh my gosh, I didn't even do that when we were in the office. I'm like, I was there like 8 a.m, late at night. Like, I don't even, like, the thing that turns me off is like, oh goodness, I have to go walk my dog before he like pees all over the house. So like, so now, I mean, now being home, I'm just like, I think it's more like, are you hungry, Erica? You should probably stop like working and you're about to starve yourself. Like,
we need pets.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess, like, you know, he wakes me up in the mornings now. Like, you know, it's not me waking him up, it's him waking me up, and it's like, take me for this walk now. And, you know, so my schedule is kind of honestly around him now, instead of like being in the office and doing certain things in the office. Like, that gave me a specific schedule there. Now it's like, you're home with your dog, you need to go around what he wants. He owns you at this point until you get back. So but yeah, I mean, I still have the same mentality though. I'm usually like still just working, trying to like do as much as I can in one day and so many hours to like figure it out. And then, but now I do more, instead of staying really late like I was in the office, I'll usually cut it out at a specific time. Just like Keiko and I were talking about, like, mental health at this point is super important. So now I shut it off. Like, I definitely do. I give the dog some time, you know, and I give some time to myself. Started picking up like new things that I used to, you know, stop doing when I got this job, like painting and having a diary and things like that. Like, you know, I shut off the world. I actually have an alarm clock on my phone at 10 o'clock that's TTWO, and it's telling me to turn the world off so that I can give myself that clarity again. So I don't know how you guys are doing it, but that's pretty much how my world is right now.
I like that. I need that. Maybe I should set my alarm now for that. That's good. So I will set a goal for myself every day. And because I've realized that, you know, little background, I'm huge on gym and working out and fitness and stuff like that. And I realized that working from home, if I just get up and even if I wash my face, brush my teeth, put on some clothes, and I just come straight into the office, like, my energy is not there. It's not there. So I started working out in the mornings, and I'll get up earlier if I need to, if I've got meetings, or I'll maybe wait until lunch. But I try to make sure that I'm working out in the morning so that I have that energy. And once I hit my goal, and the emails kind of slow down or the Slack messages slow down, then I'm like, okay, I can close the computer screen. But as long as I hit my goal, however long that takes me, if I'm still on my computer at 7 p.m., that just probably means that I like played around in the morning and I wasn't as productive. So I have to set a goal. And once I hit that goal, then I'm done and I turn the world off.
Yeah, it's actually pretty similar with me. To be honest with you, I think when this whole thing started, it was actually pretty disorienting, because, you know, you take the commute out of the way. Now you've taken 3 hours out of your day that you got back. So, you know, it's really easy for this job to sort of like take over in some ways, because in some ways there feels like there's even more to do. But I also think too, like, it's just more important now than ever. It's just like your own sanity is important in that. So don't make your whole life just about the work. Have structure and be smart about it, but don't let it consume it, because it's really it can disrupt other areas of your life. So I'd say for me, just as a whole, I still calendarize my time. There still is time in which I'm going to be calling and email prospecting. How many accounts do I want to go after today? And then I do take breaks as well. So something that I do is, I work the central time. So, I'm on Pacific Standard Time. So when it's their lunch, which is 10 o'clock my time, I use that time to exercise. There's a reason I'm not showing the other side of the office, because there's an actual treadmill here right now as well. And there's like a ball over there too, and some weights. So I do that. So by the time I'm done, I'm ready to hit it back, and I have a renewed energy, and I'm ready to re-engage. And then there is something where it's like, I still work a little bit later than usual. I'm getting better about that, but I usually try to cut my day off at 4 or 5, so I do work pretty long hours, but part of it is at the end of the day, I'm using that primarily to plan the next day. And so once that's done, I let everything else run its course, and then I go for a bike ride and talk to friends and whatnot on FaceTime. So part of it, I think the thing is even with this whole thing is like, not lose sight of having fun and relationships and the people that are important, because you need that to keep going. Like, we need like stronger morale more than ever before. Like, that's the truth of it. It's being a BDR is already a tough job without a pandemic like this, but you essentially times that by 2, and you just need more input in you than ever before. So, so for me, how I determine it is I still keep that structure exactly the same. And then I completely disconnect. So I'm either done by 4 or 5.
Yeah. I think honestly what helps is, like, I've always made the job fun, and I've always done it outside the box and been creative with it, so it's like, it's never been too stressful for me, because I've had fun actually doing it. So
She's great.
yeah, so I mean, now I'm just having fun doing it from home, and I feel like less judged too, because I'm like doing all these random things in my own home and have sticky notes everywhere, and like just living my life like without being. So I mean, like, my creative's been able to like flow, and I'm just like, okay, cool, this is, but I prefer to be in the office though, like 100%.
Wasn't your dog employee of the month recently?
Yes, actually I nominated him for the month. If you read that post, well deserved. Fridge came in second. So Mr. Fridge came in
The
second.
competition was tough.
Peak competition there. Seriously.
One gave me joy, one gave me joy with food. So I mean, I don't know. It was, I mean, I've been out doing some crazy stuff over here on my end, I've been out of the office since the beginning of March. So I think we left our office for pretty early compared to a lot of other people. So, and I live in like a little small area in North Oakland in Piedmont, where it's like just family people kind of all around. So I'm just to myself. So I figured out some extremely cool ways to keep myself entertained, and it's working. I went and I shaved my head like Brittany I said in the last post, but that's about it. Like, that's the only thing crazy I've done so far.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I think like one of the things I'm hearing, again, kind of as has been echoed throughout this, is like morale is important. Taking care of yourself is important, and enjoying your day, even while you're being productive, only makes you more productive and makes your day better. So definitely something to think about. Well, that's all the time we really have for today. So thank you so much to Keiko, Alberto, and Erica for coming on today. I think what you all shared will be extremely helpful to anybody listening and trying to learn more. And if anybody watching has any thoughts, feelings, requests, or ideas, please feel free to leave them below. We always appreciate that. And thank you so much, and have a great day, everybody.
See ya. Bye.